cheat sheet review, or custom cheat sheet review is what I'm going to get into now, because I've been looking at the free cheat sheets that are offered and they're just really bad. And so hopefully I'm going to find some better customized cheat sheets. And the first one that I'm looking at is Draft Sharks. However, when I typed it in, Draft Sharks was at the top of the list. The first thing you're greeted with is all these awards that Draft Sharks have won. And so that's supposed to give them credibility. And as you're going to find out, that's really just not the case. So let's just hop into it. I'm going to review the accuracy awards today. So what are these accuracy awards? So you can see there's a couple that kind of flash real quickly. These two are from the FSTA, and these two are from Fantasy Pros. I like the FSTA, I like Fantasy Pros, and let's take a look at what those accuracy awards were for. So I Googled the FSTA and couldn't find much, and that's because it seems to be no more. So I don't know why it's no more, but it is no more. Maybe because Fantasy Pros has picked it back up, and in any event, it was sponsored by Fantasy Disputes, which is no more, so that may be part of it. So if you take a look down here, you can see this was one of the years that Draft Sharks touted as they won this year, and that is true. They did win. There they are, projection results, they won. But there's no explanation of what the methodology is here, so you're just kind of left to wonder what it was. Fantasy Pros, I'll describe later, does describe their methodology. It's flawed, but at least they describe it. So here you can see how important methodology is, because they've got two methodologies set up right next to each other, and one was hosted by FFD Librarian. Maybe they both were, I don't know, but this one, no explanation for who calculated this. But you can see Draft Sharks is number one under this methodology, and under this other methodology, they're not even in the top 10. That's how important methodology is when you go to look at the accuracy of somebody. So this, I can only gather from the title, is based upon ranking, so how well you ordered them in a list, and this is based upon projection, so I assume that means a point projection. So if I had to choose which one I wanted to be better at, I would probably say this projection, so that's good for Draft Sharks. However, still there's a whole lot of problems with projections, as I'll discuss in the review of Fantasy Pros methodology. But as you can see, with any of these accuracy challenges, they're only going to tout the times that they've won. You don't, hear them touting, well, what happened in that you were great in 2012. What happened in 2013? How come you didn't win the award then? Well, clearly, they didn't win the award. Otherwise, you would see it. And that's the other thing. You'll never hear these analysts tell you about the time they picked wrong, because it's like, well, there's a joke. It's like stocks. Yeah, people only talk about their winners. And I think the other part of that joke I'll just leave out because it's not politically correct. But there's some other things that guys don't talk about. In any event, so this shows you, one, they don't tell you about the times they won, and they don't tell you what the methodology is. I mean, excuse me, they don't tell you about the times they lost. And there's a reason. So let's, I would just throw out anything that refers to the FSTA. I'd say it's probably not worth your time, but they won it. It's okay. Let's take a look at the Fantasy Pros methodology. So here they actually do describe, okay, here is our methodology for picking, and it's really a lot of fluff. if you read through this, it's based upon a PPR scoring system. You can see that right here. So right there, it's a PPR scoring system. So if you don't have a PPR scoring system, this is not going to work out for you. And at least if you try to use these cheat sheets as a measure of whether somebody's accurate or not, it's okay. So there's some other things. Here's they describe they're only going to rank quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. They're going to get down later on. They're going to say down here that they don't rank kickers and defenses. They're excluded because many experts do not produce ranks for these positions. I guess that's okay. And the reasons they give here are incorrect. Fantasy owners believe predicting the blah blah blah. Fantasy owners might believe that, but it's not true. You can predict these things. It's easily demonstrable that you can see how a team scored last year at defense, and that pretty closely predicts what they'll do in the following year. So you can predict it. Whether or not people believe it or not, that's another thing. In any event, no big deal that they don't use that. The real problem is this thing they call accuracy gaps. So they're going to calculate accuracy gaps for quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight ends. What does that mean? Well, it's good in that it's more than just a ranking gap. So if you're off by 1 point in a ranking, that's like, all right, 1 point minus for you. It's a point projection. So if you're off by your ranking of a wide receiver, then you might lose 30, 40, 50 points, depending upon which slot you put that receiver in, or a quarterback, a wide receiver, or running back, whatever. So that's good because it's weighted. It's a weighted accuracy analysis. However, it doesn't include scarcity. So let me show you what I mean by scarcity. So if I'm really bad at ranking my running backs, then I'm not penalized for that. So let me show you what I mean. So here's my league. Here's my scoring for running backs right here. So you can see if you look here, there's a tier. So if I get these tiers right, that's okay. But you can see the running backs are in this really high scoring tier of 450, and that's a scarcity based VBD prediction. So if I'm wrong at running back, then I'm talking in the neighborhoods, you can see the first tier drop right here. I go from 450 to 389, 390. So roughly a 60-point gap. So if I get that tier wrong, then that's be a 60-point ding for me. Plus, what really matters when it comes to scarcity are these other positions, wide receiver, tight end. So if I look at quarterbacks, if I get the quarterbacks right, that's great, but they start at a lower tier. So it's not really fair to say that somebody is more accurate if they got all the quarterback rankings right, because the quarterbacks just aren't worth as much. They're in my league a dime a dozen. You can see the gap between the top tier and the second tier is only a little over 20 points. So if I screw that up, then I only get a 20-point ding. And that's because quarterbacks aren't as scarce. I only have to start one of them in my league. Running backs have to start two. So there's back to Fantasy Pros accuracy analysis. It's not scarcity based. And so anybody who's doing that ignores the fact that you have to get the running backs exactly right for most leagues, and that has to be weighted extremely highly. And then The accuracy for wide receivers can jump up really high if you're in a league that starts 3 wide receivers instead of 2. And likewise, tight ends. So there's all this scarcity that goes into the prediction that if this accuracy analysis really misses. So if your league has a scarcity position, and usually, and they almost all do, then the methodology that they use to pick who's the most accurate really matters. Like back to this, it's the methodology is huge. You can drop from being in the top 10 to not even being present, not there. So really don't put any faith in these accuracy analysis. What you want is a custom cheat sheet, which I'll review later for Draft Sharks. What you want is a custom cheat sheet that's based upon the scarcity in your league. And hopefully it's from a provider that can show that they're accurate when it comes to predicting scarcity-based position projections, not just projections, but scarcity-based VBD projections. And so in order to do that, there's an algorithm. You need some software, and I'll talk about that. It's not really covered here, but basically the accuracy analysis that you're seeing here for Draft Sharks is kind of worthless. Don't put any stock in it. There's all sorts of ways, all sorts of methodologies by which an expert could say they're the most accurate. All you have to do is tweak the methodology a little bit. For example, I could say, well, I want to include defenses and kickers, and then boom, I'm out of the top 10. Well, drop defense and kickers. Boom, I'm back in the top 10. I say, well, let's base it upon a standard league with no PPR. Bam, I'm back in. So all these little tweaks in the scoring system and scarcity and what positions you include have a huge effect on the accuracy that you'll see. So again, don't put any stock in these, or put stock in these if they exactly match your league, which they don't, because they don't include scarcity. So don't put any stock in these until they include scarcity as a measure in their accuracy analysis. Thank you very much. This has been Dr. RoboCoach. If you got this far, please send an email to RoboCoach@FantasyFootballDraft.com and request a free subscription, and you will get one. And please also like this video and subscribe. And thank you very much for your time. Good luck this season.